We are live. Hey, Desmond, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Natalie?
We're here. It's a loaded question. I don't know why I ask anybody that anymore, but we're still doing our thing and we're still back here on Substack going live with all of you wonderful people. And my gosh, we were just doing this over the weekend, but you know how this news cycle is. So there is so
Endless.
much more. It's endless. There's
Yeah.
so much more to talk about. So Desmond and I, we put our heads together and tried to pick a variety of interesting topics that touch on a lot of things. But as always, if there's something that you want us to connect about, please put it in the chat. And if we can get to it, we will, or we'll save it for our next show, which I think is going to be Friday.
Friday.
Yeah. So, okay, we've got a whole list. Desmond, I'm just going to kind of like run down the topics and then we're just going to kick it off. So,
Right.
first, we're going to be talking about who gets pardoned and who doesn't. Because it seems like if you're a police officer or a rich white reality TV star, the answer's you're looking good for you to get pardoned. But if you're brown and have immigrated from a different country, the idea that you're going to be allowed to stay here is not looking so good. So it's been interesting to see who Trump is saying is a worthy of a second chance and who is not. And it seems to be falling along specific lines. So that'll be interesting. Then, of course, the Senate bill, the reverse Robin Hood bill, that is literally taking bread off of people's tables if this were to pass. We're going to give you some updates. There's been some infighting with the Republican senators, which is a good thing because who knows, this thing may be dead on arrival come July. So that's the deadline on that. And then we're seeing a lot of what's going on right now with Europe, actually specific European nations now finally calling out Israel for its war crimes. And it's really going to, I think, start impacting Israel's bottom line as it pertains to trade. Is this too little too late? We're going to dive in and talk about that. And then to really round things out, you guys, what's going on with public health in this country is terrifying. And we should all be nervous, especially because this new wave and this new variant is coming from the East and entering now into the United States of COVID. And it's going to be pretty brutal if we aren't up to date on our vaccines and doing all the preventative measures. But of course, instead of supporting public health, RFK Jr. and his minions over at the CDC, they're basically taking away the opportunity to protect yourself, and they're passing along some more conspiracy theories, which we're going to get in the weeds about a little bit. So, Desmond, I'm just tired from that rundown, so you should kick things off. So what are we starting with?
So this kind of came across the wire earlier today. Had to
Mm-hmm.
figure out the details of it because, I mean, even though the headline itself is egregious, I always want to know what the details are in these cases.
Sure.
So we have this from The Guardian. Earlier, they talked about how Trump is pardoning a former Virginia sheriff who was convicted
Mm-hmm.
of fraud and bribery. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the details about what exactly happened there. First, the man's name was Scott Jenkins. He served as a sheriff in Culpeper County. This is in Northern Virginia for 12 years. And last year in 2024, a jury found him guilty of accepting more than $75,000 in bribes. This is exchange for appointing, like several like businessmen and like auxiliary deputy sheriffs within his office. The
Mm-hmm.
FBI is the one who kind of uncovered this because they kind of confronted him like a sting operation, found everything out, what was going on
Oh.
with him. Um, Prosecutors were saying that he was giving out badges and credentials in return for these bribes. So yeah, Trump has come out and said that he was a victim of an overzealous Justice Department run by Joe Biden. And so he has
Oh
just gone
God.
and removed all the charges. This man was going to face 10 years in federal prison, 10 years in prison for accepting these bribes. And now he's going to walk. So, and again, we're going to be talking about this a little bit more, but because, this is kind of like an ancillary topic to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, this is the same guy who also went and pardoned around like 1,500 people involving January 6th, including people who had violent crimes for
Yeah.
what they did on that day in that riot. This is also somebody who went after, and if you don't know about this one, a man named Ross Albright. He was a founder of an illegal online drug marketplace called the Silk Road. Trump pardoned him. A former Democratic governor who was convicted of corruption for selling President Obama's vacant Senate seat. He pardoned him.
Wow.
And Also pardoned three co-founders of a cryptocurrency exchange who pled guilty to violations of the Bank Secrecy Act. So these are the people that Trump has been pardoning. So, Natalie, before I get into my thoughts about all of this,
Yeah.
how was your reaction when you first kind of came across this story?
I mean, a tiger doesn't change its stripes, right? I mean, Trump is a criminal. He's a convicted felon 30 some times over, 34 times over to be exact, but who's counting? And the reality is, I find it interesting who the people are that he's pardoning, what they look like,
Yeah,
and in particular, how it seems to not upset his base. His base that is so concerned with law and order to the point that they're kicking out legal residents of the United States. But when it comes to this stuff, it's just like something ain't white about it. It's just like, let's just look at the obvious difference here about who is worthy of a second chance, if we want to call it that, and who is not, and who gets to make that decision in this sort of fascist state, and who does not. I was not in any way surprised. In fact, when you first told me that you wanted to start with this story, I literally just kind of went like, okay, because we've become so desensitized to
yeah,
what he has done. If this had been in any other time and you said, hey, the president, whoever it is going to be pardoning this one person, just that sheriff alone, I would have been like, oh my God, like that
yeah.
is insane. But the fact that he's doing this over and over and over again, including pardoning reality show couple convicted of bank fraud and tax crimes, uh, Todd and Julie Chrisley, which was a big
Right.
show in the early 2000s. It's like, am I surprised? No. And I think that in and of itself is the problem.
Yeah. Well, we have had this normalized, right? So
Exactly.
Trump has completely warped reality for so many
Mm-hmm.
people in this country. He is basically, and this is something that you see at his rallies time and time and time again. I unfortunately put myself through the terrible experience of watching, I think, almost over a dozen of his rallies over the years
I'm
as I've
so
been like,
sorry.
I wanted to do an episode on Trump, back in the
Mm-hmm.
day when I was in the genesis of the Independent Thought podcast.
Right.
Made myself sit down and watch his rallies. And I've watched a few more since then. And, honestly, I found it to be informative because I think they're a lot more sinister than people give them credit for. People talk about it more
I
as like a
agree.
joke. People talk more about it as like, oh, he's just some idiot rambling, and
Mm-mm.
I think that for me, it feels a lot more sinister than that. He constantly uses the language of like it's us versus them. He constantly uses the language of like they're the enemies of the state. I'm for the people. He constantly
Yep.
says that he is protecting everyone. Like so, when they're attacking me, they're actually attacking you. And this is kind of how he has distorted the reality of everything and everyone around him because now they believe that everything that he does is somehow benevolent. And
Yeah.
anytime that he's criticized, these people have to be wrong no matter what. And the language is reflected everywhere. If you're on social
Mm-hmm.
media, if you are watching like traditional, like, right wing media now, you see it everywhere. That language is coded everywhere you can see it. I mean, Trump's actions are always being viewed through the lens of he's making America great again. And any kind of attack against him is considered to be just like Trump derangement syndrome. That is the end all be all for these people, right? And so if Trump says that what he's doing is correct, nothing else matters. That's the
Right.
reality that we live in now, Natalie. And I am truthfully, it's mind boggling to me.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, I don't really know how you get through to people that are that far gone.
I don't think you can, Desmond. I think that's the trap we just keep falling into as critically thinking people
Yeah.
that are not in a cult, people that will criticize the person in power regardless of which party they're in because we're trying to hold our leaders accountable and make them do the will of the people, like do better for us.
Right.
And Trump has only ever wanted to do better for himself. I mean, he would literally throw his own children under the bus if it benefited his bottom line. So I think the problem that we continue to run into is that we're looking at it through not only the lens of critical thinking and that willingness to maybe even be wrong and have to, redirect our opinions and our thoughts based on new information, but also looking at it with a lens of compassion for other people, which he doesn't have. And I think that's what's really challenging if you don't have a personality disorder, if you're not a narcissist, if you're not a sociopath, if you're not a psychopath, is trying to understand that there are some people that do not operate ever thinking about anyone else. And that is really hard to understand. And those are the people most likely to seek out power, and
Yeah.
we continue to reward those personalities through this mechanism of capitalism that can only be held up by these different hierarchical structures. And then we all sit around and scratch our heads and we go, well, why didn't this work out for us? What did we think was going to happen?
It's a great
You know?
question. It's a great question. And speaking of which, if anyone has any questions or any comments that they want to post into the chat, please go ahead and do so. So the people who are hitting the relentless amount of likes right now, I want you to know that you are appreciated. Definitely like that.
It's not me. Look, both hands.
I want you to know that you are appreciated. We do see all the hearts coming through. But Natalie, I just remembered that the fifth topic that I was like, didn't we have a fifth topic? Right, the Trump speech that you wanted to refer to.
Yes.
Should we fit that in here?
We can. Yeah, absolutely. There was I was kind of leaving it out because we had so many other, there's so much to talk about, but I just wanted to
feel like the tail end of this conversation.
Yeah, we can
just kind of like, into it.
We can flow into it. Trump gave a commencement speech, you guys, over the weekend for Memorial Day, and like many presidents, spoke at West Point. Yeah. Which is like the, place for people with military pedigrees to attend. Right. And he has no business being there, in my opinion, but he is the commander in chief, at least on paper. So he was there, and I guess it was a very concerning speech. They said he kind of went off on a very long tangent about trophy wives and I guess yachts or something. And people, I guess, in the audience were dead silent. It was very uncomfortable. And you could really hear the cognitive decline as he was speaking. And my frustration with this is twofold. One is that I am so tired of this man getting to just rattle on anything that he feels, this stream of consciousness, old grandpa energy at the dinner table where we have to let him say a few words before we can all eat kind of thing. And no one ever calls him on it. But people are still talking about Biden's cognitive state, and the man hasn't been in office since January. And don't get me wrong, you guys, this is me I am not in any way a Biden apologist. He never should have ran again. There was a whole mess. But he's not in power, and they're still so sort of stuck on him. But it's like, your dude is literally falling apart at the mental seams. Have you seen the rants of his Truth Socials lately? It's all caps all the time. And his speech at West Point really just hit it home for me, how unbelievably unhinged he is, and how we are all just at this deranged man's mercy. And it really just freaked me out. And a lot of people were also freaked out. If you're at West Point and those people aren't really rallying around you and you're the commander in chief, this is really supposed to be your time to shine. Yeah. That is concerning. Desmond, did you see anything about it? And did you have any thoughts on it?
I mean, I did see it. And I mean, my thoughts about it is like, this is just who Trump is at this point. He's
not mentally well. I think we need to start saying it more.
He's
obviously.
Never been mentally well.
I think it's gotten worse, though.
Yeah,
I really do.
No, he's definitely getting older. It's obvious. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you watch videos of him speaking now versus speaking in his first term, it's obvious how much of a decline there is. Mm-hmm. So I think that attacking Trump from every angle is definitely the way it needs to be. I mean, yes. To your point about like how people don't talk about this enough, I think right now, so many people in the media just don't even know what to do with Trump.
Yeah.
To a degree, it feels like everyone's like tried their best to find different angles to attack him over the years. And it's largely just been ineffective. And so no one kind of knows what they're supposed to do anymore. I feel like last year when Governor, Tim Walz was coming out and calling him and a bunch of other, people in the MAGA circle, weirdos and pointing
Yep.
out all the different things that they do and they believe in. I think that was probably the most, like, I guess that anyone's ever kind of like carved in and actually really offended Trump and made him feel self-conscious. It was obvious how much that was really bothering him.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, don't think people really know how to come after Trump.
Yeah.
And it's just been a lot of errors over the years. But I think, more than anything, substantive attacks are definitely just the way to go. And just pointing out the obvious, really.
Yeah.
I think the problems that we've had over the years attacking Trump is I think that people attack Trump for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think as time goes on, I think more and more people have discovered what those wrong reasons were, and people have been finding more, I guess, like more poignant attacks for him. But I think too
Mm-hmm.
many in the mainstream media still just don't really know what they're doing, which is why, as I always say to everyone, support your local independent journalists because they really know what they're doing.
It's true. Just
They
like
really
us.
do. They really do. That's
No,
actually
I
it's
agree.
a whole different story. But the Democrats right now are actually apparently considering tens of millions of dollars in investments into new media going into the next election. So I think they might be starting to
Considering,
finally that they're
considering.
considering. I guess some people in the party are still
Yes.
unsure about it, but it is being
Okay.
considered now. But
Maybe after
that's
we
a whole
lose a
different
few
story.
more times, yeah, I can't with these people. I can't. I
That
can't.
no,
I can't.
maybe that'll be a topic for Friday.
I think it needs to be because I
Yeah.
got some thoughts. But I want them to be more prepared than the
Right.
half
Right.
half half crazy stuff I could say right now. But I want to segue into the next thing,
Yeah.
and I want to talk about the Senate bill updates because
Sure.
what I think you said is important. And also, yes, we don't know how to deal with Trump media, collective media, right? But I think sometimes because he is so distracting, it allows the Senate and the House to get away with things. And then it's like, oh, well, Trump wants this, or Trump said this, or Trump did an executive order. But it's the Senate and the House that are actually the ones still passing bills, making laws and passing them.
Yeah.
And the fact that this reverse Robin Hood bill isn't totally dead yet, and it's one of the worst pieces of legislation I truly have ever witnessed.
Yeah.
Um, and no Republican should want anything to do with this. It is antithetical to a Republican platform, at least an old school one, in my opinion. It's complete government overreach. It's spending like there's no end in sight. There's so many issues with it that I would think would offend most Republicans from a
Yeah.
philosophical perspective. The fact that it's like, oh, we're calling this, Trump's whatever bill allows the Republican Party to not have to take ownership over the shit that they are trying to feed the American people themselves. Yes, Trump can say he'll support this bill, but we both know Trump's never read this bill. He's never going to read this bill. He probably doesn't even know what is really in this bill. But
No.
the Republicans are in power, especially the Mike Johnsons of this chaotic fascist regime. They know that. They know if they just tell the president, here, just sign this, he's going to do it. So I think we sometimes give them too much leeway because everybody is so focused on, well, what crazy thing did Trump say today? Meanwhile, over here, they're literally taking away your health care.
Speaking of which, let's give the updates on what's happening
Mm-hmm.
with the bill in the Senate right now. Because as you know, the bill was passed in the House by a vote of
Sick.
215 to 214.
Mm-hmm.
So could have had some more Democrats voting against it if maybe people weren't dying in office. It's a different story, apparently.
Maybe we need to do that for Friday, too. Maybe somebody else will be gone by then. We can add them to the list. Dropping like flies over here, Desmond.
And
Good
so
Lord.
there was this was coming out from USA Today. They kind of gave an update on like what the mood in the Senate is right now as far as how the
Mm-hmm.
Republicans are looking at this. Because for those who don't know, the bill is going through a reconciliation process, which means they don't actually need the 60 vote threshold. They're going to be able to get it through with just a 51 vote majority, which technically means they only need 49. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, they only need 50. No, 49 of their senators to vote for it because they will have the vice president be the tiebreaker in the Senate.
That's right.
So the Republican, I guess the rest of us have to hope that 4 Republican senators decide not to vote for this thing. That's the only way it's not going to pass. So apparently, Senators Josh Hawley from Missouri, Susan Collins from Maine, Lisa Murkowski, Rick Scott, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, they have all come out for different reasons so that they are opposed to the current construction of this bill um, for some pretty awful reasons as far as I'm concerned. But nevertheless, it is causing the bill to be hung up in the Senate, and it sounds like they're actually going to rewrite this thing. And this is where things get a little in the details here. Trump apparently said that he was okay with this. He actually encouraged over the weekend senators to rewrite the bill, even though the Speaker of the House asked them not to rewrite the bill. So there's already some dysfunction there between Trump and Speaker Johnson in the House. So it seems that Rand Paul, Rick Scott, and Mike Lee, senators from Kentucky, Florida, and Utah, they all said that they won't vote for this thing because it doesn't cut enough of Medicare, Medicaid, and SNAP benefits. They said that the bill is fiscally not responsible because it's going to balloon the deficit and that they just refuse to sign on to anything that's actually going to involve more spending. So that's their objection. They actually don't think it goes far enough. Meanwhile,
there's a special place in hell for these people, my friend. My God.
Meanwhile, the senators out of Kansas and Maine and Alaska said that the bill cuts too much. And so that's why they're not on board with it. But I think that these are senators who are afraid that with the demographics of their state, that they won't be able to survive another election if they have to go back and tell people, like, yeah, I voted for this bill that takes away all your health care. You actually have some senators, like Tom Tillis in North Carolina, who is afraid of the green energy tax breaks that are being cut from this, saying that he doesn't want them to be cut because they're going to hurt businesses in his state. But meanwhile, other senators are saying that they need to take them out because I'm going to assume that other businesses lobby them. So there's a whole lot of dysfunction going on here right now. And on top of all that, there are Republicans in the House saying that if you send us a bill that has even more spending cuts than what this bill currently has, if you send a new bill back to us that has more spending cuts, we're not going to vote for it because we're going to get demolished in the midterms next year and we're going to all lose our seats. Right. So that is the kind of back and forth that's happening to it right now. The Senate wants more cuts. The House is like, this is the best you're going to get. There's kind of a gridlock at the moment. So I'm not trying to give everyone too much of faith here because who knows what's going to happen next. But as of right now, there's an infighting going on, and I'm not really sure how it's all going to play out. So that's just kind of the state of play right now. But Natalie, what's your reaction to all of the girls fighting?
Yeah, I honestly, I've been trying to look at this philosophically.
Yeah.
Because we can talk about, we can debate all the policy points and all the details, but let's just think about this from a philosophical perspective. What is the function of government, and what is it that we want our tax dollars to go towards? This is where I think we aren't doing enough self-reflection and understanding what we as a people want. Because the last time I checked, the government is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Which people, Natalie?
People that want health care, okay? People that want a roof over their heads. People that want a living wage. The working person, right? Which is about 95% of this country, 97% of this country. Even a lot of the wealthy are working wealthy, right? If a white collar professional stops working and stops having their income stream happen, they're going to go broke eventually too. So this is all relative, of course, but what we need to start thinking about is if we want to look at this as what is the function of government, we can look at it from perhaps the perspective of, the founding fathers, right? What did they look at if we want to look at it from sort of that originalist viewpoint? Or do we want to look at it from a more modern perspective in this moment? What is the function of government? But at the end of the day, government is supposed to do things that support a civilization, that support a society from not falling in on itself. It's not about tax breaks for billionaires. It's about infrastructure. It's about clean air and water. It's about everybody having food. These are just sort of basic tenets of civilization that I think have somehow got lost in the plot because we live and exist and are forced to slave under end stage capitalism. And I think this was ripe for this kind of bill to sort of come forward because so many of us have forgotten the purpose of what all of this is for. And we're going to talk more, I think, in the months to come
Yeah.
about this because of this bill. But what do we want our tax dollars going towards? Endless war? And so Elon Musk can build another spaceship that's going to blow up over our ocean and pollute it? Or do we want it so that everyone can get health care and we get rid of this thing called medical debt and no child or human, anyone in this country goes hungry? Like, to me, this isn't just a battle over a bill. This is really a battle over the spirit of this nation. What do we want it to be? And I want to revisit this line of thinking as we go along, because I think there's a lot to unpack here as we discuss this.
Yeah, speaking of medical debt, I want to just give a quick shout out to a great organization called Undo Medical Debt. They've been doing amazing work around the country, buying
Yeah.
up people's medical debt for pennies on the dollar, forgiving it completely, working with state governments to do the same. Obviously, a number of
Mm-hmm.
states like partner with this organization now to get that done. So I think these are all great things. I would encourage more people to check them out, donate to them if you can. I think until we have universal health care, organizations like this, unfortunately, not only do they need to exist, they need to be amplified. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Natalie, we are going to be talking about this bill time and time again
Yeah.
as this kind of like drags on. But one of the things that I kind of wanted to kind of cap on here, as far as like my last feelings on this for right now, because again, there's so many things we're going to say. And for those who missed our first conversation about this, we had a conversation in our last video, so you can check that out if you subscribe to our newsletters, which you can do so by clicking on the top of the screen right now. You can subscribe to both of our newsletters. If you're watching the playback, you can subscribe to the channel, and you can see all the previous videos that we have done, including some of the funny jokes we put up on the video on Natalie's behalf about her light going out.
I'm starting to
Donate
lose
to
the
the
light right
Natalie
now,
Light
guys.
Fund. Donate to the Natalie Light
I
Fund
need
so
to
that she
get a new
can
ring
not be
light.
doing Natalie in the dark for these live streams. Uh,
You'll just hear my voice.
right.
It's going to be
So
really hot.
But in all seriousness, though,
Yeah.
a lot of people are going to be absolutely crushed
Yeah.
if this legislation comes to pass. There are so many
Mm-hmm.
people who rely on SNAP benefits to make sure that they have food on the table. There's so many people who rely on Medicare and Medicaid to. I mean, this is healthcare we're talking about. I mean, we're talking
100%.
about going to the doctor when you are feeling sick, going to the doctor when you are worried that something might be happening
Yeah.
to you, and now people are avoiding going to the doctor when they might need to go. This is how things like cancer ends up getting missed when you're not going and getting checked up when you're not feeling well. These are how people just going to get a little personal here, Natalie. I apologize. I had a friend a few years ago who was feeling sick for quite some time and didn't think that she could afford to go to the doctor.
Mm.
She ended up going eventually, came to find out that she had pneumonia, and she passed away. And
Oh.
she didn't go because she didn't think that she could afford the doctor bills because she did not have insurance. Like,
Mm.
these are the types of things that happen to people
Mm.
when their health care is taken from them or they do not think they could afford health care. So when we
That's
talk
right.
about wanting to have health care for everyone, it's not just some bull, like argument that you
No.
Republicans talk about, like, oh, let's just give everyone free stuff. No, we don't really have a society that's functioning if
That's right.
people are afraid to go to a doctor when they know that there's something wrong because they're afraid of how much it's going to cost. That's not the
Yeah.
society that we want to live in. And there are so many countries on this planet that have already figured that out, and they've
Yeah.
already instituted universal health care for their people. We have more money and more resources than all these other countries that have already done it. And we choose
Yeah.
not to because there are people in this country who make so much money off of the system being the way that it is right now and keeping people in a constant state of debt and
Yeah.
fear
Yeah.
of, like, hey, if I change my job, I might lose my medical insurance. There's so many different problems with this system, right? I mean,
Yeah.
medical bankruptcy is still the number one form of bankruptcy in America right now.
That's right.
So I am so strongly opposed to anybody who wants
Mm-hmm.
to reduce healthcare access in this
Mm,
country.
mm.
And so I promise that we will continue to talk about this as time goes on, because as far as I'm concerned, there are very few issues that we face right now that are more important than people's access to healthcare. And so whoever's threatening it for any reason, they have my full attention.
Thank you for sharing that story. That's not an easy thing to do to bring it back down to the human level and just say, hey, this isn't about statistics or numbers. This is about people that we know, people that are our neighbors, people that we love. So
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that. I know that must have been hard. Um, this has been an issue that I have been involved with since I was 17 years old.
yeah,
I don't think that we can have any other conversation around basic human rights if we don't center access to quality healthcare free of charge. And by that, I mean, we as a society decide we're going to prioritize this and fund this and take care of people because we know, you guys, that so many other things spiral out of not having a robust, meaningful, quality healthcare system. And we're seeing them play out all the time. So, this is, I would say, one of the most core issues to improving our quality of life, but also our livelihoods. If
yeah,
you can't go to the doctor, if you can't get paid time off to go to a job, like so many other issues feed into this, right? If you don't have stable housing, you can't, like everything just kind of all comes back to public health. And that's going to be something we're going to touch on towards the end of the show. But we have
yeah,
one more topic in between discussing more about public health.
yeah.
And Desmond, I know that this is a topic that you've spoken out on. I myself have spoken about this many times, but please share with us the impact that is now happening with Israel, and as we're turning our attention to how Europe is now looking at this.
Yeah. So in a joint message, you had the United Kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
France, and Canada all basically come out and say that they are now threatening sanctions against the state of Israel. And this is a massive sea change in rhetoric compared to where these countries have been at and where they are currently now. We've heard some, different rumblings come out of, various nations, especially across Europe, of people condemning what's going on in Gaza, through what Israel's actions are. Seen countries like Italy and Spain and France and Ireland obviously have all come out at different points in time over the last year and a half talking about how they are considering or have already done weapons embargoes. Spain has also at multiple times not allowed Israeli ships to come into their ports. There have been
Mm-hmm.
plenty of people calling on the ground for boycotts, for sanctions, for stopping, for full weapons embargoes, from the people in and around Europe. But we haven't really
Yeah.
seen too much of that coming through the actions of the governments yet. But I have a statement here from these three nations. I'm going to read a little bit of it really quickly, where they talk about they are strongly opposing the expansion of Israel's military operations in Gaza. The level of human suffering is intolerable.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying that, while Israel suffered a heinous attack on October 7th, they've always supported Israel's right to defend itself. They said that the escalation is now disproportionate. It's the word that they chose to use there. They said that they will not stand by while the Netanyahu government pursues these egregious actions. And if Israel does not cease the renewed military offensive, that it will and lift its restrictions on humanitarian aid, that they will take further concrete actions. And they go on to define what those concrete actions are, saying that we will not hesitate to do in targeted sanctions on the state of Israel if they do not stop their. How do they describe it in here? Really quickly,
Yeah.
um, they are calling the actions in there um, breaches of international human law. I'm
My
sorry,
God.
international humanitarian law, which is
Mm-hmm.
interesting because we also have something here from the nation of Germany, who are also saying that they are now considering stopping sending weapons to Israel. To which the reason why this is also significant is the fact that besides the United States, Germany actually sends Israel almost just as many weapons as we do. So they are a huge supporter of the state of Israel, sending them a lot of the weapons that they've been using in Gaza over the last year and a half. They are now considering stopping sending all weapons to the state of Israel, especially because of the fact that they say that they are breaching international law. So it's very striking to me, Natalie,
Yeah.
that from my perspective, and I think from the perspective of a lot of different scholars and a lot of people, journalists who have covered this over the last year and a
Mm-hmm.
half,
Mm-hmm.
Israel is not really doing anything that it hasn't been doing the whole time. People are now talking about the famine that is, that is coming to the people of Gaza because Israel's had a blockade of the area. They have not been allowing any humanitarian aid in. And that has kind of been true the whole time anyway. So I think for
Right.
me, what is really stark about all this is not that Israel's doing something new and it's triggering this response from Germany, the United Kingdom, France, and Canada, but rather that it seems that public pressure has now mounted enough in these nations that these governments feel like they are forced to act in a way that I honestly didn't know that we'd ever see. Because after
Yeah.
everything that's gone on so far, all the devastation that has happened, I mean, there was an airstrike on a tent like refugee camp that was in a school just 2 days ago, where Israel bombed this camp at night while they were all sleeping. It was almost exclusively women and children, and they were all killed with the exception of just maybe a couple people who actually survived the fire of being because the rest of them were just burned alive.
My God.
So this is what Israel has been doing the whole time. It's been well documented by many organizations around the world. Many genocide scholars are calling it just that, a genocide. And I've been floored that nothing's happened up until this point, but I am heartened to see that some of these countries are willing to finally do something more, talking about weapons embargoes, talking about sanctions, because it's been a long time coming as far as I'm concerned.
Hell yeah. And let me ask you a question. Did you watch Eurovision this year?
I did
Do
not.
you watch? Okay. I say this for a reason because Israel was one of the participants, one of the singers was from Israel, which is weird because it's Eurovision. So I don't really know why um, Israel's involved in it, but they were like the main sponsor. Moroccan
Yeah.
Oil sponsored the whole thing. And I felt like something was shifting when the singer got up on stage and there were audible boos coming from this European audience. And my husband and I went and looked all of this up. They actually were so loud that in post production, the organization that runs Eurovision like pulled back the sound on them and put in clapping to make it sound like she wasn't getting booed. And
Wow.
then what was really interesting was she didn't do that well with the judges. She was sort of like in the middle of the herd. But then all of the sudden, the popular vote, she ends up in second place. And everyone is saying that this thing was like rigged. And it was kind of an interesting juxtaposition. And I realized at that moment, I was like, something's going on here. Public opinion has turned in Europe at a different level than I think as Americans we see because we don't really get that kind of a window into the culture firsthand. But I love watching like international stuff because I just like seeing how perspectives actually are as opposed to an American lens around a TV show. And it
Yeah.
was very clear from everything that I read that people were unhappy. And apparently, somebody went out on stage at one point and they brought like free Palestine flags and they tried to like rush the stage. So there was actually a lot going on the ground at that international event. And it really got me thinking, hmm, there's so much attention on this type of show. It's like watched by 180 million people around the world or something. The fact
Yeah.
that they felt the need to hide the actual sentiment of what was going on,
Right.
and then not that long after, European nations come out and sort of like finally take a stand. I'm not saying Eurovision caused that, but what I am saying is I think the sentiment has been there and we're
Right.
not hearing it. We're not seeing it, and it was a groundswell of things and certain things that I think have happened, like last week talking about 14,000 babies risking starvation if they didn't end this blockade and get aid through. I mean, that kind of thing really starts to hit people in the gut. And there's only so long that I think these governments can act in the way that they're acting without public opinion sort of drowning them out. And the only difference is in this nation, we, at the end of the day, did not vote as it pertained to what was happening internationally or where our taxpayer dollars were going. I guess we
Right.
didn't care about those taxpayer dollars. We just don't want them to go to feed children here. So it's just, we can bomb children with them there. We just can't feed children with them here. Those seem to be our tax priorities. So that's why I said earlier, it's like philosophically, we have to figure out what is it that we actually want our government doing. Because right now it looks like what we want is bomb children, don't feed children here.
It's really hard for me to talk about this subject and keep my composure, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest with you. There has been so much like irrational pushback from people
Mm-hmm.
who I had respect for and who I have
Mm-hmm.
since lost respect for. I mean, to me, it's been a pretty cut and dry issue for a very long
Yeah.
time. There are 2 million people on the Gaza Strip, an area
Mm-hmm.
that is the size of Manhattan, and half of those people are under the age of 19.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very young population. These are almost all kids, almost all of them.
Yeah.
And when Israel is talking about who they are bombing, who they are attacking, they always say that they are going after militants. But every piece of data that we've gotten out of this area has shown that over 90% of the people that they have killed have been women and children.
Yeah. Because they're lying.
Like, and
Like that's
and oh,
it.
sorry, and the elderly. Let me amend that last statement. But like, it is just civilians for the most part. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
everything that you look at when you break down what they have done, it just violates international law after international law after
Mm.
international law. I mean, they have, in all semblance of normal society, they should be treated no different than how Vladimir Putin was treated after his invasion of Ukraine, right? You would
Yep.
think that Benjamin Netanyahu would be a pariah in the whole entire world, that every country would be sanctioning them. No one would be sending them weapons. Every normal country would be breaking off any kind of ties with them. I mean, you still to this day, I really side note here, like I play, chess sometimes on like chess.com's app. To this day, if I'm playing somebody who's in the country of Russia, their like flag is still blacked out. Like they don't display the
Mm.
Russian flag anywhere. If you watch a Russian player playing in like the US Open, they black out the flag. Like they have made, everyone around the world has made it very clear that they were not condoning what Russia's doing in Ukraine. And yet, to me, I don't understand how Israel hasn't gotten that same treatment. Like they,
Yeah.
in my mind, should be a pariah state for what they have done. They
Mm-hmm.
have violated every norm that you could think of. They continue to do so, and it's made no sense to me, Natalie, that it's taken this long for so many countries to do what I think to be as the bare minimum, which is to call it what it is. When
Yeah.
you are trying to forcibly displace a bunch of people, that is ethnic cleansing. That is a violation of
Mm-hmm.
international law. When you are cutting off humanitarian aid to a group of civilians, that is violating international law. When you
That's right.
collectively punish a population, you are violating international law. I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
going down the list, they've been doing this since October of 2023. So
I
I do
know.
not know what's taken so long for so many countries to get on board and to do the moral thing, which is to say that, Natalie, this is something I was saying from the beginning. They have the
Mm.
same access to intelligence that we have here in America.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
we have always had the ability to go in there and know exactly where members of Hamas were hiding. And if you wanted to target them individually with like a precision strike, you could have done so. And they have done that.
Period.
They have
Yeah.
done that already. They have actually targeted people in different countries that they knew were Hamas leaders with
Mm-hmm.
precision strikes. So they've always been able to do it. They chose not to.
Mm-hmm.
They just chose not to. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to do any of this. In fact, there was a ceasefire deal brought to them just over the weekend where they were going to release all of the hostages and they turned it down. They
Mm-hmm.
turned it down. So, like, I just, The solution that I want from all of this is I want more countries to come out and forcefully condemn Israel. I want them to sanction this country and I want them to stop sending them weapons.
Yeah.
Because I just do not believe in any way, shape, or form that Israel has ever cared about anything other than eliminating Palestine off the map completely. That seems like that's been their intention all along. And that's the final thing I want to say about this today.
No, and I agree with everything that you said. And I think what breaks my heart, I was watching a really beautiful documentary about Palestine over the weekend, about the history of it. And these people, when you start learning more about who they were and how they were utilizing this land and the way they related to their land, it breaks my heart because you can have different ethnicities live together and different religious groups live together in harmony. It didn't have to be like this.
Yeah.
What always upsets me is it's never the people. It's always the governments that want power, they want control, and they want it to look and be shaped in their ideology. And the reality is, these people could have all, I think, coexisted the way that they were coexisting before World War One, and it all continued to go downhill from there. And it broke my heart watching this and learning what a hub of industry and art and culture and manufacturing this land was, and who these people were trying to be, and how they rose up the ranks with education and with culture and the appreciation they had for the natural beauty of their land and the way that they cultivated it. And there could have been, I think, a time where many people could have lived there and prospered there together. And unfortunately, we know that once again, like we said early on in this conversation, it's the people that want power that get power, and they end up hurting people that just want to live in peace and grow their fig trees and their lemon trees and just live together. And it really broke my heart. So I don't know what the answer will be, but I certainly know that providing weapons to a nation that is indiscriminately bombing children and women and the elderly and anyone, that is not the way forward here. That is not the way forward. I sometimes think we almost act like if we're bombing men, that's okay. There's always this idea that, like, well, we can't bomb the children or the women. And it's like, well, we really shouldn't be bombing the men either. Like, can we just say that? Like, it's okay to say that
Natalie, you're not ready for that conversation.
no one deserves that, like I'm ready for that conversation. I just think that sometimes we try to qualify once again what we were talking about earlier, who is worthy of salvation
which lives matter
and who is
which
not.
lives don't matter.
And we all know that, right?
Yeah.
So just a reminder that, of course, I think the reason we are focusing on the children, and rightfully so, is because they are the most innocent and the most vulnerable and need the most protection. And we know that. But I don't want us to negate the fact that people deserve a chance to survive this and thrive after this. And there are more people than aren't, that just want to live in peace. That's all.
Yeah. So let's get to our final topic of the evening.
Speaking of peace, I don't have any because of what's going on here with public health back here in the old US of A. Guys, I gotta just say, like, RFK Jr. he gives me the ick on next level. And I want to just understand how we got here, because this man is a monster and he continues to say and do things that every day, Desmond, I'm just like, how is he in charge of this organization? And right now, the latest thing that he's done, speaking of protecting the most vulnerable, right? The United States isn't doing that either. So why would we expect them to do this for other countries, right? At least we're being consistent in that way. RFK Jr., this is from Politico, but there's a million places reporting on this. Ends COVID shot recommendations for healthy kids and pregnant women. The Trump administration is changing government guidelines for who should get the COVID-19 vaccine. RFK announced in a video message on Tuesday, if you want nightmares, watch that video, that the CDC will no longer recommend the vaccine for healthy kids or pregnant women or people, birthing people. This is wild. This is not based in science, you guys. Okay, the previous CDC recommendation before the regime took place was urging annual vaccinations for anyone 6 months or older, anyone. And if you were over 65, over the last couple of years, they've recommended that you get a booster every 6 months based on the variants. This was common sense and it was good science, and they've changed this. And what makes me insane about this is we already don't have quality healthcare for most people in this nation, right? We're about to kick millions and millions and millions of people off of Medicaid should this reverse Robin Hood bill pass in the Senate or some other mutated perversion of it.
Yeah.
But the idea that a vulnerable group like pregnant people who really could benefit from the protection of the COVID-19 vaccine, because we know the dangers. We know the documented dangers of what can happen if you are pregnant and get COVID, which include all different types of chronic health issues, as well as miscarriage, as well as your unborn fetus having developmental issues in the womb, as well as you
Yeah.
having an increased risk of stroke, all these things. And now they're saying that one of the most vulnerable groups should not be receiving this vaccine, and it won't be recommended, which means it won't be covered by insurance. And then on top of it, you have the fact that we don't have a director right now. We don't have an actual CDC director, and the NIH
RFK running
director.
the CDC?
Right. I mean, he'd like
Is
to.
that what's
I don't.
happening there?
Yeah, I guess. But the National Institutes of Health Director, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, he
Yeah.
made some off the wall remarks earlier. I think it was just today or yesterday about the conspiracies around where COVID started, to the point where a lot of people at the NIH walked out
Saw
of
that.
his talk on
Saw
this.
that.
Guys, the inmates are running the asylum. I mean, it's just, we've entered a new level of terror, and I don't think we're responding enough to it, because once again, it's almost like we're in a boxing match and we're just getting punched over and over and over so many times and so quickly we can't even get back up to throw a swing back. That's how I feel like we are behaving right now with public health. We can't even get up to fight because they just keep hitting us. And I don't know where this leads, other than a lot of people getting sick and dying, because we at the same time have a new variant circulating that's coming from China. It has landed
Yeah.
in New York. It's landed in a bunch of states already around the country. And it is incredibly transmissible. So we have waning immunity. We don't have an updated COVID shot. And now this. And just to add a little cherry on the top, we don't have a flu shot prepared for flu season. The flu kills people. Like, this to me is, I think this is just, we have mass murderers on the loose, and they've taken the form of running our public health spaces. And I, for one, am furious. And I'm not exactly not sure what we are supposed to do, other than I've called my senators. I will continue to call them. And I've written a letter to the FDA about providing robust COVID supports and the need to continue those. But beyond that, I don't know what we're supposed to do, Desmond, and I'm starting to lose it.
It does not make any sense to me that you would remove recommendations. I mean,
Mhm.
what are they at the end of the day? I mean, you are just saying
Right.
that you should probably take this to protect yourself from a potential airborne virus that can come into contact with you at any time, anywhere. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And again, we've had this conversation the last time, but I think it's still relevant. Obviously, you never know who watched both videos here, but what I was saying about this previously was, what does not make any sense to me is, has the science changed? And if
No.
if it has, if you're claiming that it has, because you are now the head of the CDC, you are the director of HHS, or Robert F. Kennedy Jr., if you are directing this to be the case because you believe that there's some new evidence out there that says that people in these certain groups no longer require these recommendations, then present that information. Present that
Mm-hmm.
information. Like, if the information's out there,
Thank
present it.
you.
But they haven't presented it. So you are changing directives based on vibes, on feelings, off of culture war stuff. I mean, like what? At the end of the day, when we are issuing guidelines for health reasons, when we are issuing guidelines for safety reasons, there has
Mm-hmm.
to be like tangible reasons for why decisions are being made. The government's job isn't just to be issuing orders and issuing directives based off
That's
vibes.
right.
You have to be explaining why we are doing
Oh
what we're
God.
doing. And that is
Mm-hmm.
not happening right now. I don't
No.
I don't think it's really asking too much. Like, you could be skeptical of vaccines if you want to be. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, but in my mind, I think that everyone should kind of be on the same page with, because even the most like anti-vax people, there's still also people who are like skeptical of the government, right?
Of
So in
course.
my mind, I'm like, all right, if you're skeptical of the government, then you should be also on the same page of, if the government's asking you to do anything, there should be some tangible reason for it. They're
Yeah.
providing none. That honestly, I mean, it kind of like calls it. It ties into so many other things that we talk about, Natalie. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And what we've been seeing under the Trump administration so far is that they don't really care about providing information to us
No,
for the things that they're doing. They don't really care if we
they
are
don't.
informed. They don't care about whether or not they're breaking the law. They don't care about whether we need to be understanding the decisions that they're making. They're just doing things, and they don't really care how it's perceived. I mean, honestly, I cannot wait for the opportunity to start voting some of these people out of
Yeah,
office. I mean,
I feel
that's
that.
that's what I keep thinking about time and time again. Because when you said like the inmates are running the asylum, I mean
Hmm.
that's really all it is right now. I mean,
Yeah,
nobody knows what's going to happen next because you can't predict someone just
no.
making decisions based off vibes.
Listen, and the fact that there just is no director at the CDC. So this person, the CDC's current nominee was Susan Monarez. She became acting director in January 23rd, but then stepped down on March 24th. So there's just like a lot of confusion about what's even going on over there. And to your point, like no one really knows. But I just wanted to share a little thought about. I constantly am saying the real virus is misinformation. And here was a perfect example. I had
Well, the
posted
other virus. I
the
mean,
other
don't want to
virus.
say the real
No,
virus. I
you're
mean,
right. You're
that's
right.
that's
The
not
other
the right
virus.
vibe here,
No,
Natalie.
you're right. You're right. The real virus is still the real viruses, but the other virus is the fact that misinformation spreads. And how do we know this? Because I somehow went down one of those Reddit rabbit holes where I was just reading all this stuff, right? Because I was like, I'm really trying to understand these anti-vaxxers, like, because my science brain, it's not computing. Like, I don't understand. And so I'm reading it, and I swear to you, one of them said, I wish they would make a vaccine that was a weakened form. And I almost lost my shit. I was like, that's a vaccine. Like, I was like, wait, they've gone so far into anti-vaxxer mode. They're now for vaccinations and they just don't know it. And if that doesn't explain the level of ignorance around all of these things. And, Desmond, when I used to do my radio show, I really made it a point to have immunologists and scientists and researchers on because I wanted people to hear directly from them. Like, don't take my word for it. Like, I'm just a person that reads, but like, I'm going to interview people that actually create vaccines, that have worked on vaccines for the measles, for COVID, that worked on animal models, on human models, and understand, like, let them explain to you the incredible process. And let them explain to you why these work in a way that would make sense for the average person. And it was always wild to me because when you actually get to hear a person talk about it that does this work and you hear the passion and you hear how they just want people to be safe and they will learn from a mistake, they will learn from trial and error, and they keep trying and they want to make it better, and each iteration grows or explains why we keep needing new vaccines for COVID, why the old ones don't work, explaining what a variant is. Like, when you get actually somebody to break it down, it sort of is like the monster in the light is a lot less scary than the one in the dark. And we quickly realize that the things that freaked us out, it's like, oh, but when I actually hear and understand it, now it makes a little more sense. And maybe I'm not so adverse to this, knowing that this person lives and works in my community and they're trying to do something for the betterment of society. I mean, that to me is a really important component. It's that human connection that I sometimes think it is lost in some of these equations. And going back to the worthy versus the unworthy, this sort of idea of this figure, that this abstract person or concept, or this idea that we're bombing those people over there, we forget that these are human beings, right? And so I think grounding it back in our humanism is really important when we're talking about really big issues.
There are so many different things. I mean, honestly, we could probably have a whole like half an hour, 45-minute discussion off of the first thing that you said, trying to understand why people feel the way that they do about vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's so many different layers to it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
going back and talking about what was happening in 2020, how people were reacting to it. There's a conversation around people's just general mistrust
Yeah.
of the medical system, which I think that
Yeah.
has multiple layers to it.
Yep.
I don't care how much of a broken record I sound like. I will relentlessly talk about the just like there is too little of an effort of people on the left to talk about the pervasiveness of the right wing propaganda machine.
That's
How
right.
well funded it is, how like brazen it is, how much it just like penetrates every corner of society.
Yeah.
So many
Yep.
people don't even realize that they are essentially dealing with right wing propaganda in their everyday lives or some like facsimile to it, and it is one of the biggest obstacles that we face with so many issues in society. You
Mm-hmm.
have billionaire funded propaganda networks that are able to just throw out conspiracy theories like wildfire, and then everyone ends up buying it, or should I say everyone, but everyone on their end of it ends up buying it. And then we are having these nonsensical conversations in our everyday lives, and we can't figure
Yeah.
out where did this come from. That's usually where it comes from. You know, the Daily Wires of the world, the Tim Pools of the world, the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owens, the Fox Newses, like these people are able to just lie without any repercussions. And these things just have a giant ripple effect through our society. I mean, all they have to do is be like, hey, I'm just asking questions, bro. I'm just asking questions. That's all I'm doing. I'm just asking questions. And the next thing you know, millions of people are just asking questions about why vaccines need to be taken at all. And
Yeah.
here we are.
Amen to that. I will just end on this as we're wrapping up here. There's this book called Don't Think of an Elephant, and I read it
Yeah.
during George W.'s first term, and it was about framing of media. That's how long and
Yeah.
pervasive this issue's been. Because what's the thing you think of when you say don't think of an elephant? You think of an
Right.
elephant, right? And the
Yeah.
right has done this really well. Even when I used to talk about the abortion issue, with people that were anti-abortion, instead of saying
Right.
anti-abortion, I would say pro-life. Well, now I've framed it in their framing. So anything I say is automatically not going to work because I'm framing it within their wording. And I think we've continued to fall into this trap over and over and over again. Is the right puts out talking points and then the left mimics them and says, don't say that. And then they just repeat what the right said. And I think you pointed that out really well in our last video about
Yeah.
the big, beautiful bill or whatever. And since then, I've been calling it the reverse Robin Hood bill. I'm not using those words. And thank you for reminding me that framing is really important. And so that's just something else to be thinking about.
It is. It is. And I want to say, Natalie, that I hope that we continue to learn from each other as time goes on. I'm hoping that we will also get you a new ring light.
It's happening, guys. I'm going to get one this week.
Yeah, we're gonna fix our audio problems. I know that I kind of just I gave in today. Just went back
Between
to
the
these
two of
headphones.
us, this is going
We're
great.
gonna fix. Well, this is month 1. Okay, so check us out in month 6. You know, we're gonna get better and better.
Love this for us.
If you have not already, please go ahead and click the top of the screen right now. You can subscribe to both of our newsletters. Should have said that a couple more times throughout this.
I know
we're gonna
we were in the
out.
zone. We gotta remind
figure
people
this all
to
out.
yeah, it's coming.
So this is a little outro here. I have been reposting these videos with a little bit of extra editing to my YouTube channel. So if you are not already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching this on YouTube right now on the playback, definitely subscribe to the channel. So, Natalie, hopefully we'll be getting her, on YouTube at one of these points in the not too distant future. If you're not already, go follow Natalie on Instagram, where she just eclipsed 6,000 followers, now working on 7,000.
Yes.
So we appreciate everyone who's been coming here and watching these lives with us. It's honestly been a really great time. I've been enjoying it. We were doing it once a week. Now we're doing it twice a week. We'll see how long that lasts. We'll see if it keeps going or not. We'll let you know.
Come on, Desmond, be positive.
Hey,
we're gonna be up, guys. We're gonna be doing this all day, every day.
It's summertime. You just never know when things might change. We'll definitely be back on Friday. That much is a given. Friday. 5 o'clock Eastern-ish, somewhere in that area.
I think that's what we said. Yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah, somewhere in that area. We'll be back Friday.
We're going to be talking about a lot of interesting things, but I really, on Friday, I want to talk a little bit about media and manipulation as well, because there's some stuff that's been going on with journalists in general that I think would be worthy of a conversation talking point, for sure.
I am always here for it. I mean, I'm going to keep talking about it, because it blows my mind. Yeah. Just how much of a problem it is, and how little focus it gets, Natalie. I mean, it really does. Like, people are constantly talking like, oh, the Democrats need to do this, the Democrats need to do that. This is the reason why they're losing. I'm just like, there's a giant elephant in the room, everyone. And you're pretending like it doesn't exist. Like, just because you don't want, Ben Shapiro to exist does not mean that he does not exist. It does not mean that he does not command hundreds of millions of eyes every year.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how much the Daily Wire particularly has a grip hold on society.
I know.
A lot of conversations that we have on the internet generate from their misinformation. So anyway, I will save it for another day. But
save it for Friday, baby.
Matt Walsh is a white supremacist. I do not like
and
this
that's
person.
How we're going to end. Good night, everyone. All right.
Okay.
We appreciate you guys. This was a great conversation, and the important part is to just keep the dialogue going and share this if you found it useful, and please continue to leave us comments. I'm sorry we didn't get to as many of them, but there were a lot here. You guys had a lot to say. We'll read more of them come Friday, but until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and mask up. No one's coming to save us. That'll be my last point of conversation.
That's a good way to end it. Well, we will save us.
We will save us. Bye, you guys.
See ya.